Probably have to turn my mic and, speaking of which, my mic and my camera off some because my mom will be bringing my son home shortly. She's picking him up for me since I'm sick.
Fine.
And once he's kind of in the picture, I'll be listening a lot and chiming in occasionally.
No
Okay.
worries whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm going to start my PowerPoint, and when I start that, I can't really see the chat. And so Martha's going to monitor that chat for me. We're going to try this again, see if I can get a PowerPoint to come up.
We can see it now.
You good? Okay. So thank you for coming today. I hope that this will be useful for you. We have our Best for All academics, educators, and student readiness. We will be focusing on our educators today. And we are celebrating our Teachers of the Year applicants. So the goal of the Teacher of the Year program is to recognize and celebrate the wealth of excellent teachers that exist across the state. We applaud teachers who devote their professional lives to enriching the lives of Tennessee students and who demonstrate exceptional gains in student achievement. So this webinar will provide an overview of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year application Part 2 and best practices. Our learning objectives today. Following completion of this training, learners will be able to identify the components of the Tennessee Teacher of the Year Part 2 application and identify best practices for approaching each component. We ask that you do remain on mute throughout this session until asked to unmute and share. If you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. There will be times throughout the presentation that I'll stop for questions, and feel free to unmute at that time if you'd like. So to get started today, if you could please answer the following question in the chat. What is one thing you hope to gain from this training session? Anybody have anything? Want to share anything?
They're typing away. Little dots are just dancing and names are popping up. So
Perfect.
We're going to have to practice our wait time. Best practices and strategies for submitting a competitive Part 2.
Good. We're going to cover that today.
More detailed information on each component.
We'll cover that. And again, when we reach at the end of each component, if you have questions, feel free to unmute or type in the chat questions.
And confirmation that they're working on the application correctly, approaching it in the right way.
Okay.
Those are good outcomes.
Yes. And again, if we don't cover something that you are wanting to know, please reach out and ask. Okay. You're here today because you are selected as a region level semifinalist for the Teacher of the Year. You were provided the Part 2 application to you via email. Part 2 applications must be submitted by May 14th. The Part 2 application contains 3 new written response questions, an opportunity to submit additional supporting documentation, a professional resume, 3 letters of recommendation, a professional biography, and a professional headshot. The entire Part 2 application will be scored by a statewide scoring committee who will identify one finalist in each region of the state for a total of 9 region-level finalists. All applicants will be notified of their application decision by June 2nd, 2023. Okay, so let's dive into the first part, the response questions. And so applicants will respond to 3 written responses that range from 500 to 750 words each. The first question is describe a project or initiative you helped create which contributed to the improvement of overall school culture. What was your role and what is the status of this project today? Please include evidence of student impact in your response. Do not exceed 500 words. So the purpose of this question is to see a little more in depth about how you are able to, I even ended that. I don't know why it does it. Sorry, my last webinar did the same thing and I even made sure it didn't have the timer on it and it did it anyway. So I may have to be switching back and forth today. But the purpose of this question is kind of to see an in-depth showing of how you view or how you came across a need for your community, your school community, and how you approach that, and what evidence do you have that it made an impact, and kind of the status of that today.
Micah, can I jump in?
Sure.
This is one of those places, folks, where it is not time to be humble. It is time to really celebrate your accomplishments and really shine a light on what you do, because so much of what you do makes a difference. It's a great place for you to get someone else's feedback that knows the way you function in your school community and can say, oh, you really underplayed this, or you really should add more about that. Let the people who know you and celebrate you help you celebrate yourself.
Thank you. In question 2, this question is really highlighting your leadership skills and your experiences that led to the growth of those leadership skills. So the Tennessee Teacher of the Year is a leader among their peers in and outside of the classroom. This leadership is primarily realized through serving on the Commissioner's Teacher Advisory Council. The Teacher Advisory Council aims to empower members to act in the following roles: as leaders. Through advisory council members will be poised, engaging, and articulate advocates for the department's vision and strategic priorities. They're ambassadors. The advisory council members will represent Tennessee and the education profession by engaging with internal and external stakeholders. By being advisors, the advisory council members will use their expertise to provide feedback to inform the department's initiatives, resources, and policies. And also by being champions, the advisory council members will promote and uphold best practices in their schools, districts, communities, and regions. So the question is, how have your previous experiences prepared you to engage and lead within these domains? So this one does not have a word limit. I have had several emails regarding asking about this question and what they should include. And my answer to you is make sure that you are giving a comprehensive view of those important experiences that led to your leadership skills and describing how they either showcase you as a leader or help to build those leadership skills. Make sure that your answer is focused on the question and you're not just trying to fill up and tell as many things as you can, because there is a human on the other end reading this and scoring this, but you want to make sure that they're able to focus on those important aspects of your leadership skills and your experiences that led you there.
Micah, I'm going to pause you again. We have a question
Sure.
from Sandra Howard. Her first question was she has two questions. Her first question, and I believe she was asking about the last slide. So I'm sorry I didn't stop you a little quicker. This
Okay.
was a question on part 1. Should we use the same project we included in part 1, or do we need to choose another project?
The advice is to use another project. And the scores for part 2 will not be reading your part 1. It will be a different score. However, you do want to make sure that you are giving a well-rounded approach to your answers and that you're not just copying and pasting from previously. Does that make sense? Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
What was part 2 of that question?
Sorry, I was muted. I believe she has a second question, but that was all of the first question.
Okay. What's the second question?
I don't have a second one yet.
Oh, okay.
That was the only one for now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's Dina Carter has 2 questions, and I haven't seen one from her yet, so I'll keep an eye out for those.
Okay. Just let me know, pause me, and I can answer those at any time, and we can go back if we need to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. And question 3, the Teacher of the Year serves as a spokesperson and representative for teachers and students across the state. If you are selected as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year, what will be your primary message? What will you communicate to your colleagues and to the general public? Now, this one's a little bit larger word count. 750 words is your max. And this one, you really want to focus on kind of your, I want to say, philosophy or your primary message of how you want to share your experiences and your kind of, again, tying into those leadership skills. How do you want to help make the education community better, and how will you share your message with the education community as a whole? Okay. Some missteps, common missteps with answering the response questions. So let's look at how to avoid those. A strong response may look different for each written response prompt. These guiding questions can help you ensure that the components of your application complement one another and give the most comprehensive view of your excellence as an educator. So make sure that you are answering the question. So ask yourself, am I answering what the question is asking? So take your time to unpack the question and think about what it's asking. So for example, question number 1 says, describe a project or initiative you helped create to contribute to the improvement of overall school culture. What was your role and what was your role? And what is the status of this project today? And please include the evidence of student impact in your response. So that first part asks you about to describe a project or initiative you helped create, which contributed to the improvement of the overall school culture. So you really want to think about how you identified the need for this initiative, how you developed this project, and how you created this initiative, and tell the story of that project and how it impacts the students and the school culture. And so that second part of that question says, what was your role and what is the status of the project today? So make sure that you describe the evidence that your project improved or your project had an impact on student or your school culture, and include how you played a part in that initiative and kind of where it is today. Are you still a part of that? Is it continuing without you? Just more information about it. Additionally, I encourage you to ask someone else to read your responses and ask if they can determine what the question is that's being addressed. So make sure we always have anything at the department, we make sure other eyes look at it before we submit it. And I encourage you to do the same thing, as many eyes as you can, to kind of read over and make sure that you're giving a focused answer to your question. And it's really giving a view of what you want to say. Make sure that you're answering all parts of the question and use that unpacking strategy to ensure that you plan for and address all parts of the prompt in sufficient detail. All right, another
Micah,
thing
I'm going to jump in again. We've got a new question. Will the previously submitted questions from part 1 be submitted with this part 2 application?
They will not. So you will only be submitting the part 2 answers, and the scores will be different than the part 1 scores. So you will not have the same score as your previous. So they will not have your part 1 answers. Any other questions? Again, stop me if you need to. Make sure you're giving.
Somebody is typing, but it hasn't come through yet. So I'll jump back in. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Let me get through this slide and then we'll pause again for questions. Are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as an educator through all responses? So try to avoid using the same example or idea in your response to each question. Your goal is to give a complete picture. Are you writing to show what learning looks like in your classroom? Write to show, not tell. Use examples and stories of things that students, parents, or colleagues have said or done. Show how your work influenced the learning and growth of others through examples and evidence. Highlight your accomplishments rather than being humble about them. So this is your time to brag on yourself and your accomplishments. And a good idea is to write through your word count. Don't worry so much about your word count on your first draft. Get all of your ideas out on paper, and then you can go back and edit as needed. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Another question. On the letters of recommendation, should they all be written addressing the committee as a true recommendation letter? Or can a parent letter be written to the teacher directly? Should these letters directly reference the Teacher of the Year application? So the first part of that question is, should they be written like a true recommendation letter to the committee, or could it be a parent letter to a teacher? That was question 1. Question 2, should it directly reference the Teacher of the Year application?
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to put a pin in that question until we get to the letters of recommendation part
Right.
of our presentation, and we will cover those questions. And if I don't cover it in my presentation, we'll come back to them.
Okay, I'll hold you to it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions about the 3 written responses? We're going to move on to the additional documentation. So this section includes the professional resume, 3 letters of recommendation, your professional biography, and optional supporting documentation. Okay, so the professional resume for the Teacher of the Year application requires a different perspective than tailoring a resume when seeking a new job opportunity. The primary goal of this resume is to provide information about how your previous experiences have positioned you as a strong candidate for Teacher of the Year. With this goal in mind, you should think strategically about which of your experiences, and further, what aspects of your experiences align to the Teacher of the Year criteria. And your resume should highlight these experiences. At a minimum, the professional resume should include the following components: education. And in this section, you can list degrees that you have earned or that you're currently completing. The license and endorsement areas. So in this area, list any of your valid licenses or your endorsements. Professional experience. In this section, you should list your most recent jobs and associated responsibilities. Be sure to note significant accomplishments in each role, as well as key features of each position. And this is important to think back to that. How does this experience highlight my excellence as a teacher? How does this experience show my leadership skills and things along that nature? So make sure the experiences that you're putting in have a purpose. Professional leadership. In this section, you should list any professional leadership positions you have held. Professional leadership may include school level responsibilities, such as leading a PLC or student organization, district level responsibilities, such as leading professional development, or region level responsibilities, such as serving as a pre-service mentor or cooperating teacher. You should include community leadership and involvement. In this section, you should list any leadership positions you have held or community organizations you have been involved with. This might include nonprofits, faith-based organizations, or service organizations. And lastly, awards and recognitions. This is your section to brag on yourself. List any awards or recognition you have received for your work as an educator. This may include your school and district level Teacher of the Year award, community awards, or recognition, any published articles, presentations, or featured news items. Some best practices for your professional resume. When completing your resume, there are some things you need to consider. Because your contact information is included elsewhere in the application, you can save space by leaving out your address and contact information on the resume. So we don't need like your home address, your school, or any of that information on your header for your resume. All of that information is included at the beginning of your application, so you can save space by leaving that out. Similarly, since the process includes letters of recommendation, you can also save space by leaving out any references. You want to emphasize skills and experiences related to the Teacher of the Year criteria. Write your responsibilities using the action plus results format and begin with an action verb to describe the type of work you did. For example, led 8th grade social studies professional learning community to analyze and accelerate student learning, which resulted in a 15% increase in student proficiency on the 10 Ready. Be sure to define all acronyms. For example, instead of saying a school representative of TEA, you would type it out, school representative for the Tennessee Education Association. And make sure that you proofread very carefully. That's where that extra set of eyes come in. Ensure your resume has no spelling, grammar, or formatting errors. Any questions about the professional resume? Okay, we're going to move on to our letters of recommendation. The letters of recommendation serve as a critical external perspective of your excellence from colleagues, supervisors, parents, students, and other community members. One letter must be from your principal, but you may choose who writes the remaining two letters. Applicants should think strategically about who will provide the most compelling and clear evidence that the applicant demonstrates the qualities of a Teacher of the Year awardee. In general, every letter should be 1 page in length. They should be typed. It should be put in as a PDF, include evidence of the applicant's strength in one or more of the Teacher of the Year criteria. Now, the applicants may submit handwritten notes, translated or transcribed letters if the letter is from a student, a parent, or an adult caregiver. Any transcribed or translated letters must include the name and signature of the transcriber or translator and may not be transcribed or translated by the applicant. Applicants should also consider the following best practices when completing the letters of recommendation. It is recommended that applicants share the Teacher of the Year criteria with those who are willing or with those who will be writing the letters of recommendations, as well as identify several key criteria for each letter writer to focus on. So you may want to give them a focus as they're writing the letter. And again, this can be anyone who is writing the letter. It can be a student. It can be someone from the community, another co-teacher. Only one of them has to be the principal, but otherwise you can have from anyone else. Reviewers will pay special attention to how an applicant's accomplishments have impacted student success. In the letters of recommendation, student success can be documented either anecdotally or with statistical evidence. A mix of both makes for a stronger application. Student success can come in many forms. Some examples are increased academic achievement, decreased disciplinary referrals, increased enrollment in challenging curriculum, increased participation in enrichment activities, increased student confidence and self-esteem, increased time spent in service to the community. To reduce the impact of implicit bias on our awards and recognition programs, we may redact identifying information from letters of recommendation before the selection committee begins their review. To support this effort, we do encourage applicants and recommenders to use words and phrases like our school, our community, a colleague, etc., instead of naming particular places or individuals. It won't be, this part 2 won't be as redacted as the first part. However, we do want the scores to focus on what is being said versus who it's being said about, and where they're from. And so to try to eliminate those biases, we do ask that you try to keep maybe some identifying information to a minimum. Okay, to our questions portion, I don't believe we covered who the letters of recommendation should be addressed to. And Martha, you can chime in with me on this one. I would have it maybe to whom it may concern. And yeah, I think it's What was the question exactly again? I can't remember.
The first part of the question reads, should they be written addressing the committee as a true recommendation letter? Or can a parent letter be written to the teacher directly? And I believe the answer is they should be addressed to the scoring committee
Yes.
as a true recommendation letter. The second part is, should it directly
Okay, hold on real quick. That teacher letter, the letter from the parent to the teacher, that could be a good place for that could be additional documents if you would like to submit that as well. It'll just be in those supporting documents.
Good point. Good point. And the second part was, should it directly reference the Teacher of the Year application?
Yes. So the letter of recommendation, like we kind of talked about in there, should focus on why they should be or why they should be considered for Teacher of the Year, and what are some of those qualities that the teacher has that we're looking for, the criteria that we might be looking for Teacher of the Year.
We have another active typing occurring, so we've got another question coming.
Get some water.
Okay, for supporting documentation, if we choose to submit a video, does all identifying information need to be redacted?
Not all identifying information will need to be redacted. In this part of the application, we are not hiding your identity at this point. I'm trying to think of a place on how you'll be able to submit a video in this. Let me think on that, and when I get to supporting documents, I'll have an answer for you. Anything about the resume, and we'll move on to biography.
There's a little bit more to that question,
Okay,
and it goes along with the redacting. Can my face be shown? And if parental permission has been given for students to be videoed, can student faces be shown? I can take the student faces, Micah, if you want to address the teachers or the educator face.
We are not redacting educator faces at this point in the application. So yes, your face can be shown.
As far as parental permission for student faces, you should always know if you have media releases for your students, and be sure that any student that is shown on the video has a media release. However, any video that you submit in this part of the application will not be published publicly. It will only be seen by our contracted scorers. So you can, it's just information for you to have. This will not ever be released publicly. So it's not as delicate as it might be in some other case. If your district has a particular policy against showing students' faces, please follow that policy.
And we'll talk about those media releases in the supporting documents part of our presentation. Was there another question?
Nope, we're good now. We can move on.
Okay. Move on to professional biography. The professional biography is used by the Tennessee Department of Education when responding to requests for information about finalists, as well as in public releases and promotional materials. The professional biography should articulate your influences for entering the teaching profession and your greatest contributions and accomplishments as an educator. The professional biography must not exceed 250 words and must be written in third person. When writing the professional biography, consider the following questions. Why did I seek a career in education? What experiences led me to the place I am today? What is my teaching philosophy? What degrees do I hold? What are my, what are my greatest contributions to the teaching profession? What are significant accomplishments I have made in the teaching profession? And what awards or recognition have I received? Any questions about the professional biography part of the application?
I don't have anything else in the chat. I do have someone typing.
Okay.
The question is, does it need to be written from the perspective of winning Teacher of the Year?
No, I would keep it as perspective of where you are right now. Do you agree, Martha?
I do agree with that.
Okay, we're going to move on to your optional supporting documentation. The supporting documentation is completely optional, but permitted to provide additional evidence for references made in your extended responses. Some examples of supporting documentation include student work, teacher effectiveness data, lesson plans, parent or community communications materials, and etc. Please ensure all supporting documentation adheres to your school and our district's privacy policies, i.e. media releases. It's important to note that the application, including supporting documentation, will be redacted for identifying information to reduce potential unconscious bias. As such, so sorry. I thought I had gotten the timer off of here. As such, it is best to ensure your supporting documentation is still easily understood without school logos, names, or specific addresses. So again, we want to kind of keep it supportive of answering your written responses, kind of backing up those questions. And if you do have student work or student data, make sure that student identifying information is redacted from that. We do not want to share that information. And if you are giving pictures of students in activities or projects that you're working with, then just make sure you do have those media releases. The supporting documentation is completely optional, and choosing not to submit supporting documentation will not penalize the applicant in any way. If you choose to submit supporting documentation, it's a limit of 5 pages maximum for the second part of the application. So it's a little more pages than the last time. Let's talk about our best practices we should consider when compiling supporting documentation. So directly connect that supporting documentation to the written responses, but do not rely on the supporting documentation to make your case. Supporting documentation should not be a substitute for high quality explanation in the narratives, nor stand alone as extraneous information. Effective supporting documentation should extend a reviewer's understanding of your written responses by directly connecting to aspects of the narrative where additional evidence, such as student work, may make your writing clearer. Ensure each page of the supporting documentation demonstrates the Teacher of the Year, the Teacher of the Year criteria. In some cases, you may identify that the written response prompts do not permit you to share characteristics of your teaching or specific experiences that fully demonstrate your ability to serve as teacher of the year. Like the best practice above, effective supporting documentation can serve to expand your reviewers' understanding of your ability to meet the teacher of the year criteria. To ensure reviewers understand what they are viewing and why it is important, be sure to provide notes with relevant information and context for any materials not directly addressed in the narrative. Something else I'd like to just slide in there, make sure that the supporting documentation that you submit is readable. Please don't shrink down 5 pages and try to fit them onto 1 page. 1 page of supporting documentation should be 1 page in real life. And sometimes we've had in the past people submit several things on 1 page and we're not able to read it because it's so much on 1 page. So just kind of be mindful of clean and focused, supportive supporting documentation. Do we have any questions about our supporting documentation? Oh, the video. We're going to talk about the video. I believe a video is fine. You would need to make sure that a link is included on a page of the supporting documentation. Make sure that you do have media releases if there's anyone involved. Make sure that it is accessible to the public. Make sure that the video stays up through the scoring process. Martha, do you have anything you want to add about a video possibly?
Just double check any links that you share that they can be accessed outside of your network. Occasionally we get links that I'm sure work. It's just like any other Dropbox account or Google Drive. If someone doesn't have access to it, they can't open the link. So just be sure any links you share with us work. For anyone, would work for anyone accessing them. We've got a couple, maybe 3 questions coming in in the chat. Still typing. Okay, let's see here. What percentage of pictures identifying information, school name, district name, etc., should we cover? Should every picture with my face have a blur spot over it, for example?
No, we're not hiding your identity in this section of the application process. I can't really give you a percentage per se, but just making sure that the supporting documentation is focused on what's happening in the photo or document versus specifically where it's happening, what school, what region.
And the second question is, if the video is already in public view on YouTube, will this content be accessible to use without needing media releases? If your district has already approved public release, then it's fine. If it is a video you have put on YouTube without your district's engagement in that process, you probably should be sure you have media releases. I got a thumbs up on that. We got a thumbs up on the identifying information question as well. So I think we're good.
All right, we're going to move on to scoring. So you may be wondering how exactly the Part 2 application will be scored. Overall, each response question will be assessed according to the degree to which the response adheres to standard grammar, spelling, and punctuation conventions, how it answers the question clearly and concisely, and if it provides a compelling narrative that speaks to the applicant's ability to serve as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year. The additional documentation will be evaluated holistically to assess the degree to which the applicant meets the Tennessee Teacher of the Year criteria. Lastly, the entire application will be given a holistic score, including both the response questions as well as the additional documentation. Sorry about that again. The holistic score will be assigned based on the degree to which the applicant demonstrates the Tennessee Teacher of the Year and National Teacher of the Year criteria. Each application will be reviewed by 2 to 3 reviewers from across the state, and the top score in each region will be selected as a region level finalist. All finalists will be notified of their application decision by June 2nd. And instructions for completing the interview portion will be shared with region level finalists at that time. Are there any questions about scoring?
We have more typing. The little
Okay.
bubbles are just all excited. Can more than one candidate be selected from the same region to be in the top 9?
No, so we will have, for each core region, we will have the top finalist. So it'll be one from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Martha, but I believe it is one from First, one from East, one from South, South Central, one from Mid-Cumberland, one
Correct.
from Northwest. So one
We
from
often
each core region.
have multiples in different categories with the first round of scoring. But when we get into the second round where we're narrowing down to the semis, those will be one representative from each core region.
I will be sending out this webinar to you, the PowerPoint and the recording to you. So if you want to view it at a later time. I also have an additional resource in this PowerPoint. So we've got the Teacher of the Year website. I apologize for the barking. My son just came home. The Teacher of the Year.
I don't think it was her son barking, but
no, my dog is barking at my son coming home. But yes, so the Teacher of the Year website, some of the links have been a little iffy. Some of them have been broken. I've been trying to send out the new link to the department website for the Teacher of the Year website. So if you come across a broken link, please feel free to email one of us, and I can send you the updated link for that. Also, the search bar on the department website can also get you there as well.
We have a new question.
Okay.
Do we have an expected time frame for the top 9?
Yes, you will be notified on June 2nd, I believe, is what we said.
Give or take, that's the plan. What we find is sometimes scorers need a little more flexibility to complete their part of the application, especially, or their part of the process, especially if we have to go to expert review. So early, did you say June or July? I'm sorry. As soon as I
June 2nd is.
So I would say early June is the target. June 2nd is the goal. Early June is a time frame that we're trying to hit. There's still a little more typing. Oh, that was a thank you. We got a thank you. We also got a thank you earlier for someone that left previously. So feel free to reach out to either of us, and congratulations to all of you. It is one of our favorite parts of the work we get to do is working with the recognition programs, and this is always very exciting. We have a few more typing fingers.
Thank you all for what you do every day for our students. I know these past couple of weeks have been big ones with state testing going on, and we really appreciate all that you do, and we love to celebrate your achievements.
We're getting thank yous galore from our audience. We appreciate you as well.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Feel free to continue asking questions. I am going to stop the recording.
Feel free to